he stood, an uncompassionate man, only concerned about his books and the money in his hand, concerned with himself and no one else. And still they came in groups, one at a time, asking for help for the children on their mind. And he stood right there with his stoic stare, dismissing them without any care. And they stood right there as they were amazed, and the look on their face was only a gaze. And more of them came for the children they loved. They wanted some hats, some coats, and some gloves. And he dismissed them all with a bah humbug. They couldn't believe it. He sent them away. Their faces were frozen the rest of the day. They continued to come because they did not know, without his support, where the children would go. He just stared at them and dismissed them with no. They couldn't believe it. He just said no. They froze in their places as if they were snow. To help the children, another group came. But would their dismissal be exactly the same? He dismissed them unceremoniously with a point and disdain. They were totally stunned, being dismissed that way. Could the children survive through another day? Another group came. They were making a case, for the children need clothing, food, and a place. He simply walked away with a glare on his face. They couldn't believe he didn't grant their requests, their hearts barely beating inside of their chests. He lay in the bed, but he certainly couldn't rest. His heart was pounding and pounding his chest. He tossed and he turned, and finally, at last, he listened to the words of a voice from his past.
Remember, Mr. Water, our money was for the children, for the children, for the children.
And on the next day, he developed a plan to help the children and be a better man. He went back to them all. He stood as a man and gave them the envelopes he had in his hand. The people rejoiced. They wondered, is this he? The man who was so stoic and now has such glee? They shouted, they danced, they said hooray, for a miracle had happened on this very day. For the children, for the children, for the children, he said. Those were the words that danced in his head. They danced, they shouted, hip, hip, hooray! For the cold heart that was frozen had melted today. The children would be served in a marvelous way. His heart changed that day. His heart was set free. He said, Christmas for the children is Christmas for me. Merry Christmas to the children. Merry Christmas to all. May this Christmas be merry and full of joy for all. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas.